Any other notable names for you? We're just going to discuss, just so you guys know, we're just going to discuss 31 through 50 because that's been revealed as of Monday recording time. Let me give you a name that stands out to me. Ryan Ramczyk at number 45.
Okay.
I was looking through his your first 2 years compared to other tackles. One of the best starts to a career for a tackle since we've started doing this in 2006. He had the number 6 grade among all rookie tackles that we've ever graded, and then the number 7 grade among all second-year tackles. So when you combine that, it's pretty good because that's not the same list of guys.
Right.
Not too many guys are on that list in the top, 6 or 7 for multiple seasons. Joe Thomas is that type of guy. He's not Joe Thomas, but man, he's off to a great start, and he only had 1 year of play at Wisconsin where he was good. And we have seen offensive linemen generally get better the more they have experience. So Ramczyk deserves a ton of credit. And, maybe a year or two from now, we're talking about him as, top 3 consistent tackle in the NFL right now.
Yeah, Ramczyk has been really good. He's also been really consistent, which is not something you see a lot from tackles. Some guys,
right.
like Jack Conklin started really well, went backwards years 2 and 3. Ramczyk has been just the same level of ridiculously good right from the get-go. I'm going to give you another name. Number 33, we have J.J. Watt. And J.J. Watt at his peak is, top 2, right? He's led a bunch of these lists in the past. Then, of course, he dealt with a whole bunch of injuries. He went down. He came back, broke his knee almost immediately. He had a couple of years where he almost didn't play. Last season, I think kind of under the radar was how good he was. Because he wasn't vintage J.J. Watt, it's he's not that good anymore. But last year, he made our PFF All-Pro team last year. So
quietly.
Right. He wasn't quite as good as he used to be. And part of that is the sort of shine or the spotlight has been stolen by Aaron Donald, who is now unquestionably the best player in the NFL, which used to be J.J. Watt.
Right.
Now Aaron Donald is the guy with that spotlight. So anybody outside of that halo of light is just another guy. So you don't really pay attention to Fletcher Cox, who quietly had one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen. You don't really pay attention to J.J. Watt because good as he wasn't Aaron Donald good, or even old J.J. Watt good. So you just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, this would be like Donald dropping to only a 90
right.
next
year. But
year.
if you look at it in isolation, J.J. Watt was really good last year. And though it wasn't as good as he's been in the past, it was basically year 1 back from all those injuries. So now you start looking ahead and you go, well, does that mean... is this his ceiling going forward, or can he take another step back towards where he used to be? Because ultimately, his sort of spectrum of play is anywhere from what we saw last year to basically where Aaron Donald is.
You know what?
Which puts him either at 33 right now or a top 2 player in the next year.
I'll get him back there. I'll get him back to 2012, 13, 14 levels. I will. Use him the right way.
How hard could it be?
How hard could it be? We're in the AFC South. We got this. Championship. Yeah, J.J. Watt coming in at number 33.
So
I'll get him back to number 2.
Yeah.
He won't be as good as Donald, but he'll be number 2.
That's if I was going to get the Texans job,
that'll be a whole slide.
I might want to have more confidence in my star player.
What do you mean? Not everybody knows Aaron Donald.
We're going to get him back there, and we're going to reclaim the crown from Aaron Donald. Hashtag how hard could it be?
Oh, let's just cut that. We'll redo that.
Yeah.
How hard could it be?
You can't
Aaron Donald's not in the AFC South.
You can't open things with, well, my guy's not as good as their guy, so what am I going to do?
It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter.
But anyway, my point is he's number 33 right now, and he could get as high as, 2 or 1.
Yeah, he could.
So
get up to number 1.
That'll be interesting to watch.
Any other names before we wrap this whole thing up? We got a meeting. We got a hard out here.
Hard out?
Yeah.
We never do well with hard outs. We're consistently late and
we're 17 minutes early, though, so I'm just trying to
so
lay the groundwork by some time.
You're giving us a good runway.
Because I could see you going on like a 17-minute rant about Deion Jones and every game-winning play that he made in 2017.
Yeah,
I've heard this 900 times. Go ahead.
Well, most people haven't.
No, they haven't.
Oh, here, look. Let's do Brandon Graham. 41, Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham, Steve, doesn't get sacks. As you know, better than anybody. Why do you know that?
I lost a bet last year. I thought he had 10 sacks.
You did. You thought he would have 10 sacks despite almost all evidence suggesting otherwise. So we bet on it.
That needs to regress.
And you lost. Are we doing that again? Or are you?
No, I think
this year you're betting 10 sacks again?
I think
okay, so ultimately, it's interesting because generally we talk about sacks as being a terrible predictive thing, right? If you want to look at how many sacks a guy's going to get next year, you're way better off focusing on how many pressures he had this year.
And that's why I made the bet.
Not how many sacks, right? What you fail to understand, though, is that there are certain players So the general logic there is that sacks, there isn't really such a thing as guys being great at finishing, right? Whether you get sacks out of your pressures or not is typically luck. There aren't really players that specialize in finishing sacks, but there are players that struggle to finish sacks. So it's not, there isn't a positive end of that spectrum. There aren't guys who are consistently amazing at converting their pressures into sacks, but there are guys at the other end of the spectrum who, for whatever reason, are consistently bad at converting their pressure into sacks. Brandon Graham is in that group. For whatever reason, Brandon Graham is lousy at converting his pressure into sacks. It's only happened 1 year where he's been able to turn that into a double-digit sack season. But Brandon Graham is consistently spectacular at generating pressure. So, and this is one of those things that we like to hammer home because sacks are definitely important. It's what you're looking for as a pass rusher. Everybody wants to get the sacks, and we've actually done some work in quantifying how important relative to pressure sacks are. Generally speaking, roughly they're double as important, right? So if you get a sack, it's worth essentially 2 pressures. But even with that in mind, Brandon Graham is one of the most valuable edge rushers in the NFL because of the volume of pressure he generates. It is worth at least as much as the difference between him and the sort of average sack generating from that pressure.
And I think the bigger point in all of this, why we also don't focus on sacks, is the difficult part of rushing the passer is beating the blocker.
Yes.
Right? And then once you beat the blocker, finishing the sack actually isn't that difficult relative to winning.
Unless you're Brandon
one-on-one.
Graham.
Unless you're Brandon. Well, he just has so many of those pressures where he just
there's
guys off the spot.
There's also this idea of, not all sacks are created equal, right? Did the sack come because you whooped your blocker and got to the quarterback in 2 seconds? Or did it become because there was a screw up in the protection and you ran a straight line for 8 yards, the quarterback didn't see you coming?
Right, or someone else moved the quarterback off the spot and you cleaned it up. So yes, all of our grading accounts for all of
So on the stat sheet, those 2 things are the same. In our grading, they're very much not.
Very different.
So there are times where a guy has 15 sacks, but his grade isn't good because 8 of them were pursuit, cleanup.
Vic Beasley,
they weren't well-graded sacks. They weren't impressive feats. And therefore, immediately you look at that and you say, well, that's probably not happening again because it doesn't typically do that. So again, Brandon Graham, he's good at the stuff that's hard to do and typically generates you a solid grade. For whatever reason, he doesn't convert them to sacks. Steve hasn't learned that lesson yet, apparently.
Next year he will. But he's consistently good as a pass rusher.
Yes, and that's why he's on the top 50, even though he doesn't get many sacks. The end.
Good explanation.
Thank you.
So I've been putting together these videos to explain our grading. Some they should be coming out on the YouTube channel at some point, trying to explain some of the things we look at. So I'm going through the pass blocking one the other day, and I was trying to show an example of a tackle giving up a sack, a hit, and a hurry that are all the same exact block. Trying to show the point that you don't judge offensive tackles by sacks because they can have the same block, and then the result is different. The result is dependent on other things.
Yeah, once you lose, what happens after that has nothing to do with you.
So Julian Davenport was a good guy to study because he gave up so many pressures, right? So I'm going through his playlist of pressures allowed and all that stuff, and he had some good examples. And I came to the Philadelphia game, and all I see is Brandon Graham pressure. There's about 9 pressures. There were no hits, no sacks. There were no examples for me to use in that game. Now, luckily, I found 2 perfect clips of Davenport giving up, whiffing on a block against Yannick Ngakoue. One of them, Ngakoue sacks Deshaun Watson. Another one, Watson breaks out of the sack, and it's just a hurry. But I thought you'd appreciate the story that I'm trying to look for examples of the 3 different types of pressure, and all I got was hurries from Brandon Graham. That's all I got. About 19 of them.
You'll get that a lot from Brandon Graham.
So Brandon Graham failed me again when trying to make
my favorite part
was
towards the end of last year when the bet was in place, right?
Yeah, and that was one of those games.
Right,
what do you have?
We're halfway through the season, and Brandon Graham has got himself 4 sacks. So 4 sacks by week 10. So at that point, you're counting down. All right, where's he getting the other 6 from?
Right.
Because I need them. Right? And you're looking at the list of tackles he has to face, and you're like, well, there's a very real possibility because he's facing some pretty terrible offensive tackles.
He should have had 4 against the Texans.
Right, so we had this countdown of games where we got 4 pressures against Dallas. We got 11 pressures against Houston. We got 6 against Washington. We get another 6 in the wild card against Chicago. We got just all this pressure coming. Very rarely was there a sack.
So pressure's a good thing as far as getting you on the PFF 50. Not good if you're expecting sacks.
He had
in a
2
bet.
extra games if you include the playoffs and still only ended up with 7.
Yeah, I'm aware. Next year's our year, Brandon. We're going to earn that lunch back.
Yep.
So there you go. PFF 50 is out. We're looking forward. Best players in the NFL. Be sure to check it out, profootballfocus.com all week. Also, are we doing some sort of freebie or something? What's going on?
Yeah, this week there is going to be a free trial for PFF. So if you've always wanted to get in, have a look at premium stats, have a look at the fantasy offerings, the guides, anything we do, anything we've talked about on this show, and you haven't wanted to pay us money to see, you'll be able to see it this week. So there's going to be a free trial that starts on Tuesday, so tomorrow.
June 11th.
Yes, well done. And we'll run the full week. So it'll be Tuesday to Tuesday. You'll be able to see everything behind the scenes. You'll be able to get in, play with it, decide if it's something you actually want to spend money on or not. And then it'll close.
That'll be it. A whole week free, though?
Whole week free.
We haven't really tried that before.
We tried it once. So we did it the tail end of last season.
Right, okay.
November, I think. It wasn't as long, though. I think it was a 3-day
Yeah, we've never done a straight
trial.
week.
Right. So this is a full week of free trial access to PFF. So dive in.
Work productivity is going to be down across the nation because of this. Because you're going to get into premium stats and be like, what, there's 12 years of data here?
Yeah.
13 years, whatever it is.
A lot of data.
Yeah, there's a lot. So, yeah, be sure to check that out. PFF Elite, free over at profootballfocus.com Tuesday to Tuesday. We hope you guys will stick around beyond that.